Thank you everyone for joining and welcome to our webinar, Exploring the Water Energy Nexus Through the Power of Greenhouse Gas Reporting. My name is Jaya and I'm a program coordinator here at the Climate Registry. I'll start off with a brief introduction on the Climate Registry and on the Water Energy Nexus Registry program before passing it off to our panelists for an exciting discussion. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer those throughout the webinar and reserve some time at the end to get through some of those as well. The Climate Registry was founded in 2007 with a mission to empower North American organizations to do more in the fight against climate change. TCR creates and manages tools for the measurement and reporting of greenhouse gas emissions, and we recognize and showcase excellence in climate leadership. Next, let's discuss why we're here today. The Water Energy Nexus recognizes that there's a relationship between water and energy. So moving, treating, and using water requires energy. These sources of energy used to power water activities are associated with the greenhouse gases that we emit into the atmosphere. In CARB's 2022 Climate Change Scoping Plan, they identified a roadmap to carbon neutrality for California. And in this plan, the water sector is identified as a key partner in achieving these statewide goals. So TCR has developed the Water Energy Nexus Registry, or the WEN Registry, in order to give participants the tools that they need to track the relationship between water use and greenhouse gas emissions. The WEN Registry is currently sponsored by the California Environmental Protection Agency, and it's available to organizations with operations in California at no cost through March of 2025. So these participants have access to WEN protocols and guidance, our third-party verification program, and our help desk support and training. But some of the most crucial benefits include understanding your organization's impact in order to make data-driven decisions to increase efficiency and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And with that, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. Our moderator is Chelsea Hasenauer, and she's been involved with the WEN Registry since its inception, so we're happy to have her here today. And I'd like to introduce our panelists. Ha is from the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, and Ram is from the California Department of Water Resources, and both are active participants in the WEN Registry. So thank you all for being here to have a great discussion with us. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and I'll pass it over to you, Chelsea.
Thanks so much, Jaya, and happy to be here with you all. As Jaya mentioned, I was previously a member of the Climate Registry team during the initial launch of the Water Energy Nexus Registry, so I'm happy to see it being relaunched at this point, and my new organization, Jacobs, is still engaged helping to spread awareness and engagement about participating in the Water Energy Nexus Registry, and also provides carbon management support to organizations across all sectors, but has a very strong water market and water sector support for both meeting compliance obligations for water, energy, and GHG reporting, as well as establishing voluntary reporting programs and meeting voluntary GHG reduction targets. So very, very pleased to stay engaged with the program, and thanks very much, Jaya and Crystal, for having me. And today, looking forward to having a conversation with some longtime participants in the Water Energy Nexus Registry. And I think by way of introduction, we'll start with a quick question about each of your backgrounds in engaging with WEN and how that has looked for your organization. So maybe we'll start with you, Ha, if you can introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about Metropolitan's previous work with WEN.
Yeah, so hi. Yeah, I'm very pleased to be here on the panel to talk about, this effort, the water energy nexus. So I'm with the Metropolitan Water District, and I've been managing the whole greenhouse gas emission tracking, reporting, and to COP, California Air Resource Board, and to the climate registry. So Metropolitan, as you know, we are wholesale agency, water agency. So our business across California, we have pumping plant, we have treatment plants, so it's a lot of moving water for us. We've been reporting greenhouse gas in the beginning. I think we started in our first reporting is for the year 2005. So it seemed like it just go through really, it's almost 12 years, 13 years now. And then recently, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Chelsea, when it started with the Water Energy Nexus Registry, when TCR had that mandate, and Metropolitan participate in the pilot in working and then with the TCR on the protocol, etc. So and then we started to report the water energy nexus. It's 2 years old. It's going to be the third year that we track our water data and reporting and calculating the metric. So in a nutshell, that's where what our involvement. Yes.
Been there since the inception, and yeah, reference the Water Energy Nexus Registry protocol. That is a protocol that was developed in the initial implementation of the program to help water agencies specifically to understand the emissions associated with their operations. And it does have a few metrics or key performance indicators that are integrated into that protocol as well that help water agencies like HAWS to communicate the emissions intensity of the water that they deliver through their system. And Ram, would love to hear your experience as well with Nguyen to date.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ram Verma. I am manager of greenhouse gas and efficiency with California Department of Water Resources. Our department supplies water to most of the state agencies. I'm responsible for reporting, tracking, reducing, and compliance with greenhouse gas for the department. We also do energy efficiency and water efficiency renovation at our facilities to reduce energy and water use as well as greenhouse gas emission. We have a climate action plan that we update periodically. The latest update, which is 2023 update, is in its final phase. So this update will have compliance with the new regulation. One of them is SB 1020 that requires that we have clean energy sources or renewable energy resources to serve all the state facilities, including our state water project and retail facilities. We also have a mandate, SB 1203, that requires carbon neutrality by January 1st, 2035. We also comply with the Executive Order B 1812 that requires greenhouse gas reduction and also to compliance with the zero net energy buildings. We have been reporting our greenhouse gas emissions since 2007, and DWR has been a member of the climate registry since it started. So I was involved in I was a member of the work group for developing protocol for when and also developing metrics and KPIs for this water energy nexus. I appreciate help from TCR. Their staff has been extremely helpful to us for guiding us in reporting and verification. And the only way we can state our carbon footprint in a credible way is by reporting and verifying using TCR's methodologies and standards. So thank you for that.
Thank you both for those introductions. So we have two very long-time members of both the Climate Registry and the Water Energy Nexus Registry on the line, and we are going to have a fairly informal conversation today, just a bit of Q&A that I've got lined up, but we're also hoping that we'll get some audience participation. So I certainly encourage those who are listening to get your questions into the Q&A section of the Zoom chat box, and we will be monitoring those. I will try to check on that and ask questions from our audience throughout the conversation so that it is not monopolized by me and what I'm interested in learning about from these two. So I think with that, we can start with the first question. We already heard a little bit in your introductions about your engagement with Nguyen and what it is that you're doing with your GHG emissions data, but hoping to get a little bit more specific based on what it is that you've been able to develop with the help of the Nguyen registry in terms of your GHG data or the metrics that you've developed. How has that contributed to your internal planning processes at your organizations, and what purposes has that data served for you? Do you want to kick us off again, huh?
Yeah, so Metropolitan has, in terms of goal, right? Metropolitan in 2022 developed, before that we had an energy management plan, etc. But in 2022, we Metropolitan have completed and make it public our goal with the climate action plan. And for us to be able to develop the plan with all the measure, how, to meet the goal, we need to know where we at, right? So that is, what you really see that the reporting that we've been doing for the last 12 years, it's really helped us to assess, okay, all the facilities that we have, the greenhouse gas footprint, and then establish also the all our water data that is basically establish the path forward. Then also the CAP have a commitment to report every year on the progress. So the annual reporting of the greenhouse gas emission and the water energy nexus metric is one of the main elements for us to see, do we meet the goal of the CAP or not? And are we doing what we need, or what do we need to do forward more, so that is really the contribution of doing the greenhouse gas reporting for us internally and, public. You guys can have access to, on our website, the climate action plan, our annual report is all available and all the data is on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So both used for internal baselining and understanding where your emissions hotspots are so that you can address them, and then also used for external progress sharing on what it is that you've done to make actions to meet the goals of the climate action plan, and where you still need to make progress. I guess I know that Met has been working on this climate action plan for several years. I wonder if you can share a little bit about the impetus or the motivation for developing that climate action plan. Did that come from your board of directors' interest in climate action planning, or was that something from local or state legislation that led to that?
I think it's a combination of all things, right? I mean, the climate change has an impact on everybody. The legislation, the U.S. and well, and also as a agency, a public agency, we need to be responsible about our action and how you provide a service for the public. That is, our footprint is also our responsibility. So I think it's really a combination of the board, of our management, and it's a progress, right? We start with something small, and then eventually you say, okay, we need establish a climate action plan. That's why it took us a few years to do that, to develop and go out, to have a public opinion about that. We incorporate all the comments and to be able to, and had the board approve the plan in 2022. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I remember it was a long time coming, and it was really a fun read for me to see the outcome of all those years of work from you, and already your first progress report. So congratulations on that. Ram, how about for you? Any specific? I know you already talked about a few ways in which you've used the GHG data that you generate with the WEN registry, but for internal planning processes and external communications, how have that data been most helpful for DWR?
Yeah, so we have been reporting our greenhouse gas data since 2007, and when this water energy Nexus program started, we started reporting that as well. So reporting in when requires us calculating our greenhouse gas from various sources. That helps us in financial planning, in risk assessment, prioritizing our actions, also helps in monitoring not only greenhouse gas emission, but other parameters which are useful. And also it helps us in goal setting and identifying our emission sources. We also set up our baseline based on the emission and our future planning. We benchmark our facilities, we set our goals, and we engage our stakeholders. And it also helps us in compliance with the regulatory requirements, because reporting to TCR, it's very comprehensive. So we have to measure and report all the sources of emission. So that makes it very easy to comply with the other state and other mandates. And our climate action plan, it's mandated by state legislation, and DWR has been complying with this plan. This first plan was written in 2012, and this is the third revision to the plan.
Yeah, that's great. I know that DWR has very comprehensive GHG reduction plans and stays on top of those and does a great job about communicating the energy intensity of the water that it delivers throughout the state. A really interesting interactive map on the website that shows that energy usage from the state water project and where water is delivered. So that's wonderful to see. And I think I heard from both of you that this has been very helpful for internal planning and communicating on the progress towards your goals outlined in Climate Action Plan or GHG Reduction Plan, and that the motivation comes from both interest from your leadership teams, but also growing legislation and regulatory requirements as well. And so we've heard from Jay at the beginning a few expectations from the state of California, and increasingly we're seeing from the water agency perspective expectations from the local government, so municipal, county, or otherwise, where they've set their own GHG reduction or climate neutrality or carbon neutrality targets that then water agencies are expected to comply with as well. So certainly much more interest both internally and externally in this type of data, and the Climate Registry's Water Energy Nexus Registry program provides very comprehensive expectations for GHG reporting as well as guidance, but the program is voluntary. So overall, the aim is to help people get started on the GHG accounting and reporting process, and choose your path forward from there. So I know we talked a little bit about the comprehensiveness of this GHG reporting program and the level of detail that the protocol sets out. I guess would love to hear from each of you maybe a single challenge that you've faced in your GHG reporting process, maybe a particularly tricky source to measure, or was it data collection or whatever a specific issue that you came up against in developing your GHG reporting program or climate action planning, and maybe how you overcame that, or how WEN was helpful in solving that challenge for you. You ready to start this time, Ram? We can switch it up.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I said, we have a very, very complicated carbon footprint. We have almost all kind of emission sources that we report. And with time and with help from TCR, we have organized our data, and we don't have much problem in reporting, but only challenge at this point that we are facing is just a lack of standard and methodologies for scope 3 emissions, because scope 3 emissions are now making a major chunk of our emission because we are reducing our emissions. So our scope 2 and scope 1 emission have gone down very fast. So now scope 3 emission constitute a major portion of our emission. So we hope that in future we will have some standards and methodologies for that.
Thank you for that. Sorry, I was struggling to get off mute. And I think that is a very common struggle for most organizations doing GHG reporting at this time. And I guess want to clarify that scope 3 reporting through the Climate Registries program is optional. The baseline expectation is usually for scope 1 and 2 reporting, but certainly we encourage organizations to be as comprehensive as possible with GHG reporting. And one element that is particularly relevant for this program, the Water Energy Nexus Registry, is the water supply chain. So as Ha mentioned, her organization is a wholesaler, so she's providing water to lots of downstream water retailers. So understanding the emissions associated with the water that is delivered to your organization, whether that be as a retailer or a large water consumer, provides an option for use of water energy GHG data that Ha has developed from her organization. She has a metric just like DWR does of the energy or emissions intensity of water that they deliver. So that can be used for scope 3 calculations from water purchasers who receive water from them. So hopefully that helps solve this challenge in some way for understanding the emissions associated with your water supplies, as that metric becomes more commonly used and more popular for organizations to publish. But certainly we're all hoping for better scope 3 data in the coming years, and I think that will certainly get better as folks start doing better scope 3 reporting.
Yeah, I would chime in the same way. You know, it's a data collection, process, very intense, right? A lot of detail, and then if you go to verification, of course, the better you have in terms of granularity, is the better you're going to be able to assess, what you can do and how you're going to improve the process, right? The water delivery process. So I think, our experience, my own experience or challenges until now is basically on the data collection, the process, and then how you're going to get the whole agency, the staff from operation to everybody that you collect the data from, purchasing, process that need to be in place. And people understand, and because every year we come back, we ask the same thing, and the data, had to be consistent of how, the methodology we collect, because we go to verification, and it's going to be asked, what is your process, right? So the challenge, I would say, for us, the most recent time, recent years, is the turnaround of our staff, right? So I can say that we, had to go again the education, of the staff, and show the process, and then also, as Ram say, we in improving and try to reduce the greenhouse gas emission, we also change the way we operate, so that we had to basically look again how we're going to report, how we're going to calculate, and all that. It's like continuous process. So that is another challenge. And of course, the new regulation that Ram mentioned of the scope 3, for now it's mandatory, but I think we should prepare for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that it's referring to the recently passed legislation that will require all organizations doing business in California with a certain revenue threshold to report their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. That is set to go into effect in 2026. So a few years to get your organization ready for that if you meet that budget or revenue threshold. And that does also require a verification component so that that data is reviewed credibly by a third-party organization to essentially audit and qualify the information that you've reported. So certainly the Nguyen registry provides a wonderful starting point for that, as Ha was mentioning. The verification process through this program is voluntary, as well as most of the reporting elements, but certainly the Climate Registry's program provides a lot of hands-on support for getting through that verification process. So it's a very helpful way to try it out for the first time and ensure that you're developing credible data. And in addition to that, getting familiar with the data collection process that Ha was mentioning, certainly there's opportunity to develop GHG data using estimates or general assumptions as needed, but the credibility is often lacking, and you have less opportunity to show GHG reductions via the initiatives that you implement when you're using estimated data. So the more accurate data that you can get, the more likely you'll be able to show that initiatives that you're undertaking have reduced your emissions because you've used real data to show that change over time. So the process does take certainly a bit of time to iron out, as Ha was mentioning, and can come into challenges when you have new staff at the organization and you lose some of that institutional knowledge along the way. But the Climate Registries program also provides some help in ensuring that that institutional knowledge remains with resources that help for that year-over-year planning. They provide forms for I think it's an inventory management plan that help you understand who does what roles and responsibilities each year for data collection and reporting. And also they have that online tool, the Climate Registry Information System, that helps memorialize things as well if you choose to use that for your reporting process. So certainly it's not an easy undertaking to start in on, but the goal of this program is to provide support in exactly that, getting started. So I think now I'd like to talk about a little bit of your successes with the program as well, now that we've heard about a few of the challenges that you've come across with GHG reporting. So maybe you could talk now, Ha, starting with you, about how the Water Energy Nexus Registry has helped you in establishing your GHG reduction goals, or the progress that you've shown in the last year on your first progress report using this Nguyen registry data as well.
Yeah, well, so the Nguyen data is that two portion, right? One is the greenhouse gas, which is what we report with the carbon footprint registry, right? And that kind of fit into the Nguyen, and then the portion of the water data that working with the Nguyen, it kind of help us really to sit down and look at, because the water data is complicated. Right. So when you talk about the metric, you had to, with the protocol, we can kind of like iron out what we need to take into account in terms of the footprint of the drop of water, right? So that is really helpful. And then we have a member agency to ask us, so what is your metric this year? So by doing that, and also for the when, what we since Metropolitan get water from different sources, right? Not only we have from the state, from DWR, and then we have from a Colorado River Aqueduct. It's two different sources. So by having the data, the water data collected, at that level, we can calculate and report it, accurately our footprint. So having the whole protocol, guiding us is really helpful for us to develop the methodology for us. Yeah.
And understanding the different energy intensity of your
yeah,
different water supplies year over year,
yes,
since I
yeah,
know that
yeah,
that changes based on what water is available to you.
yeah.
And Ram, I know that DWR has a pretty large shelf of climate leadership awards for achieving past GHG reduction goals. So would love to hear from your perspective about some of the successes that you've seen from participating in the WEN registry and how the data has helped you to set and achieve your GHG reduction goals.
Yeah, thank you. So reporting in WEN requires number one, calculating and reporting our greenhouse gas emission, and then also measuring our water deliveries, and also measuring our energy use and use of different consumables. So that has helped us in our number of our goals, including compliance with the different legislations, executive orders, regulations. It has helped us in transparency and in credibility. So we can track and monitor our energy and water data. And we have reduced our energy cost as well as water cost due to that. And we also have reduced our compliance cost due to our reporting, because we have a precise knowledge of our emission, and also we can forecast in future how much our emission will be, and that also helps in us in strategic planning for future. And we can also reduce our risk, we can assess our risk, and we can mitigate that. We also have competitive advantage because we are ready for, if there is any upcoming new rules and regulation, we are ready for that because we have everything available. Also, it helps us keep up with the new technologies because we are applying innovation and new technologies at our retail buildings to improve energy efficiency and water efficiency. And it also helps our customer with the confidence that the product they are buying from us, it's environmental friendly. It has helped us in engaging our stakeholder. We have a lot of internal and external stakeholders, and also it has helped us in resiliency toward future climate change. So these are some of the benefits, and it really has helped us in achieving our goals.
Yes, I know. I think that your initial GHG reduction goal was met maybe 5 years ahead of schedule, and maybe that was your first climate leadership award, but I think now you have another 4 or 5, which is really wonderful to see. And it's really interesting to hear that participating in this program has helped you save money on reporting for compliance requirements. That's certainly a wonderful success. And as well, that it's encouraged more analysis of climate risks associated with your operations as well. That is another related California legislation that passed just this year and will begin going into effect in 2026, where organizations with an even lower revenue threshold are expected to do financial risk assessment associated with climate risks. So certainly this GHG data will contribute to that, and it sounds like it already is for DWR, so that you're set up for success with that future regulation as well. All right. I think then we are getting down to the end of my predetermined questions list. So happy to take questions from the audience. Would love to remind you all to enter things in there, and I'm happy to read them as aloud. And certainly, if you have questions directly for Ha or Ram, we'll ask them. But if you have questions for the climate registry staff as well, feel free to add those in. And I guess maybe I'll move on to a question about any general advice that you might have for new GHG reporters from the water sector? So your peers or other similar organizations, what would you suggest to them as they start out on their GHG reporting journey, or if they've already gotten started and are looking to take the next step in their process? Do you want to kick us off this time, huh?
Yeah, I would say, through my more than 10-year experience, if you start with the process, with thinking about doing the reporting, establish a well defined process, and that's the first starting point, right? How you're going to collect the data, and then who is responsible for that? Have a procedure. And because this is go through the verification, they're going to help you a lot, right? Everything, it's well established, from operation staff to the people who do the QA, QC the data, and then put it into calculation. All that need to be the process has to be well defined, and education, right? You want the staff to understand the purpose of why we're doing this, and so that will make the task easier. And once people understand, you have like example for us, we know by January, February, you had to start to send out requests for data. For example, people know when had to come back, and when we send the request, we even incorporate in our email, this is what you provide last year, kind of reminding that. So prepare for that, and then document, and understand the operation, because as a reporter, if you are the one who do the report, you will be the one who the first line to respond to the verification. You do have to understand what the change from one year to the other year, what is your success, and why the change, why is more or less, so mainly is in control of your data.
Go ahead, Ram, if you want to add.
Yeah, in addition to what Ha said, I would like to recommend that we engage the stakeholder early in the process so that it becomes easier to get the resources. And also, I would recommend setting goals so that you can achieve these goals.
Yeah, and those can be both internal and external goals. Obviously, both of these organizations have met the step in their process where they're doing external goal setting for reducing GHG emissions, but certainly you can start with an internal goal that maybe you're going to move your data towards more accuracy or less uncertainty from one year to the next. If your starting place doesn't have as much complete data, or you have to do more estimates than you would like, that could be an initial starting point. Or perhaps it's to expand the boundary of your inventory to include more scope 3 emissions, and things along those lines. But setting those goals certainly helps to motivate for future improvements to the inventory. And the data collection process is certainly a tricky one, and requires quite a lot of documentation. I'd have a question from the audience that's somewhat relevant to that, and it's about how one gets into the GHG reporting industry. So any recommendations that you might have for gaining exposure and experience with that process. I can start by just saying that the Climate Registry's Water Energy Nexus Registry program is geared towards folks who are just getting started on the process. So there are lots of resources available there, training documents both for broader staff and also for individual professionals just getting to know the GHG reporting process, as well as much more detailed protocols and tools for doing the calculations once you have that general sense. But would love to hear from each of your perspectives within your own organization. I know it's not entirely common for water agencies to have a GHG reporting department or things like that. So would love to know how you came to be engaged with GHG reporting and how that looked at your organization.
Yeah, I can start off to say, we started, years ago, we have an energy management program because our footprint, if you look at it, it's scope two, it's electricity, right? Usage. So we start by thinking about how we're going to improve that through our energy management program. And then we said, okay, we want to also to see our footprint. So when we start, have leadership want to do that. So how are we going to get into the greenhouse gas reporting? The first thing I think we did is to understand your operation and look at the protocol and see what is it. And then from the protocol, you will identify what kind of data and how, what is relevant for you, your organization, right? Because not everything is, the protocol is large, it's for everybody, it's for all kind of industry. Water in industry is just, a portion of that, right? So you need to analyze that and then look at the source of data is the next step, and then establish the process, as I say. And in our case, we hire a consultant to help us develop the model to calculate, the greenhouse gas, because we want to have the level of granularity that, it will give us more, detailed data, then will give us a detailed greenhouse gas footprint. So that's the process that we did. And then, slowly we build up the database, and then we established the procedure, and we adjust 2 years. But I would say the first thing is to understand your operation and what is relevant for you. You define that first, and then you go from there.
Yeah, and I guess defining what is relevant will identify who manages that data in your organization and who it is that you'll need to collaborate with on that process, going maybe beyond just the energy management team or those who are tracking that information to expand to other data managers and departments within the agency. And that helps with visibility and ingrains the program across the organization over time. Ram, how about you? How did GHG reporting start at DWR, and where do you sit in the organization to get engaged with this work?
The first legislation, Assembly Bill 32, was passed in 2006, and we have been following that legislation. And after that, number of other legislation came, and there were some executive orders that required compliance. So uh, there was a need to establish a group of people that can take care of those compliance, because penalties were very harsh for cap and trade program, and regulatory requirements were very, very strict. So we started this greenhouse gas branch in 2011, and then we had a goal to set by legislation, and those goals required us to reduce our emission compared to a baseline of 1990. But the problem was we never measured our emission in 1990, so we had to go back and estimate our emission before the historical emission. And then this is how we started. And then we started reporting to TCR. We started collecting data, and we started identifying our sources of emission. It was a lot of work, but thanks to TCR, their staff, we are now in a very, very comfortable position, and we report, we do complete reporting of our emissions, and we do verification, and our emissions are public.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And I think just to add from Jacob's experience in working with water agencies as well, that a lot of times folks who are already on compliance reporting teams, whether that be air quality because you're under mandates for from the US EPA, or if you have even a water quality compliance requirements, those teams generally have some process in place for the data that they need to gather for those compliance obligations. So they often get roped into GHG reporting as well. But many organizations have have some amount of energy related data tracking because it is one of their highest costs at the water agencies. So that really provides a great starting point for what it is that you'll need for GHG reporting. And it helps to communicate the importance of renewable energy as a alternative or GHG mitigation strategy that might also lead to cost savings as well. So those are some areas that I see frequently used within organizations for GHG reporting support. And I think your last point, Ram, about moving to comprehensive and complete reporting and the verification process. I know how you do verification as well. We have a question from the audience about verification support available through the Water Energy Nexus registry. Folks would like to hear about your experience in going through the verification process. Maybe if you want to provide a little bit of an overview of what that looks like and what the pain points are and how the Water Energy Nexus Registry program resources have been helpful for that. Do you want to kick off, Ram?
Yes, yeah. So just like a regular greenhouse gas reporting verifier, greenhouse gas verifier, there are certified when verifiers by TCR. So those are available. Almost all the verifiers which are certified by TCR, they can verify your greenhouse gas as well as your WEN emissions. So when you have RFP, when you hire a contractor, please make sure that you include your WEN verification in that RFP or in the contract. So that can help you so that when they verify your regular emission, they can also at the same time, they can verify your numbers that you submitted to TCR in WEN. And we for us, it has been very, very smooth. All our verifier that we have worked with before, they were able to verify our WEN number. And also when we do verification, it's very, very important that we organize our data. We keep record of our backup documents. So that helps the verifier.
Yeah, absolutely. Ha, anything to add on that verification process?
Same as Ram, we, our verifier, we started doing the water energy nexus just, recently. And so it is with the new verifier that we have. This is the second year that we have with them. And yes, it's when, they can do when, because they, as you Ram say, you need the hydro verifier that is certified by the TCR, so they know what they're doing. And it's quite smoothly, they're the one who asked us, you need to have a process for the water energy nexus, and we are doing it. We try to wrapping up, the whole process, because explaining the water collection process, at Metropolitan, it could be challenging as well. It's a lot of things, and then you have a lot of report and what kind of data. So yeah, but we're getting there. Yeah. And they help us,
Yeah. And yeah, I know water agencies have a lot of their data that they share with the state or publicly reviewed already. So as Ram was mentioning, there are occasionally opportunities to aggregate those verification processes for different data that is going out in the public domain with this Water Energy Nexus Registry report review, with a simple add-on to a contract, or making sure that there's an appropriate technical expert on the verification team, which can help control costs for your auditing procedures across the organization for different types of data. And it just allows for credibility when you're putting that information out online or otherwise, so that folks have more trust in the information that you're sharing because it's been reviewed critically by a third party. And the Climate Registries program, I think, provides a few resources for going through the verification process, both for verification bodies to understand the metrics that are being developed and sources of information for water data that's already been publicly shared and therefore reviewed by another auditor in order to be able to compare GHG data to that water data when metrics are produced that communicate emissions intensity of water delivered. So resources from TCR available and an opportunity for sort of aggregating different verification procedures to reduce costs. One last question about it from our audience too. How long does verification process generally take? For any quick thoughts about what it looked like from your perspective, Ha or Ram?
For us, it's, we had two reports, right? We report to California Air Resource Board with SB 32. So it's a different reporting. And then TCR is the whole footprint, right? So we start, with COP, we submit the report, the deadline is June 1st, and then we start the verification with COP report first, because the deadline for the verification with COP is August. So we had 2 months to do that, right? So, and then after that, we start with TCR. So basically, I would say it takes about 3 to 4 months if we're lucky. So, because it's back and forth, right? It's very intense, but I would say this: if you thinking about doing the reporting of the greenhouse gas, it's worth it to go through the verification, because I just say it's get the credibility of your data. It has been vested and audited by a third party. And, there's a lot of things they can catch something you don't see. It's a QA/QC at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the process is shorter if you get everything right the first time, and you don't have to do too much back and forth. But also there is some determination about the level of assurance that is used for verification. So how detailed you would like that review to be. And if you're going for a reasonable level of assurance, which is the highest verification standard, and also doing multiple reports. So if you're reporting to CARB and TCR, and also just the number of facilities that your organization manages and the types of sources included will all sort of dictate how long it takes for a verifier to review. Certainly the more facilities and the more potential for necessary site visits will lengthen the amount of time expected. Ram, how long did it take for DWR? I feel like you're a well-oiled machine at this point, but what type of time frame are you looking at?
Yeah, we report our emission to TCR on April 1st for the previous year, but we start our verification after CARB verification is complete. Their deadline is August 10th. So we start after that. It generally takes us about 3 months or less. But I would like to stress one point that it all depends on how organized you are in your backup data. So when we write RFP for a verifier, in the beginning, most of the verifiers, they were scared by seeing the size of our resources. Most of them didn't even bid on our contract. So, but then generally we started mentioning that all this data is available to you in a very, very organized form. So then we got some good bids, and you will be amazed that now the proposal that we are getting are about 1/4 of the cost that we used to get in the beginning, because now the verifier knows that our data is very, very organized, and it takes a comparatively small amount of time to verify DWR data because it's very, very organized.
That's a great success story. and yeah, I guess that's another piece that contributes to the verification costs and timeline is when you engage a new verification body, they generally want to do a more complete review of your inventory, and I think that is the expectation, so that they haven't seen your information in the past. They want to get to know it in a very detailed way and make sure they understand things. And then in the future years, I think you can work with a verifier for maybe 6 years. They might be able to do things in a little bit more streamlined fashion because they have some amount of familiarity with that. So I have one more question. We have just a few more minutes. I have one more follow-up question for you, Ram. How far in advance do you start working on your RFP for a verification body before it's released?
Yeah, we start working on RFP at least 1 year in advance. But there have been cases that, as I was telling you, people were scared by the size of our entity and emission sources. So there, in 1 year, we had RFP. Nobody submitted any proposal because they thought it's very, very complex. We did it again. Again, nobody submitted their proposals. When it was third time when we had success, we had to mention very, very clearly that this is very organized of paperwork, and you won't have to spend that much time. So I will advise at least 1 year in advance you should have RFP.
That's very helpful. So that planning needs to happen quite far in advance, but I do expect that after you've issued an RFP that you finally got responses to, that you're able to recycle a lot of that language year over year, because much of the expectations or needs for verification will be the same year over year. So you have to start that process early and get through it in a detailed way that first year, but it does sort of repeat itself and become more streamlined over years in the future. Okay, so I think we're in our last couple of minutes now. I do want to just reiterate to everybody that there will be a recording of this and those brief slides that JS shared at the beginning sent around via email, so you can refer back to this in the future. I want to say a very big thank you to you, Ha and Ram, for joining us today. You guys have been wonderful
Pleasure.
partners to the One Registry over the years, and it's great to hear your perspective today. And thank you very much, Jaya, for having us all. It's been wonderful to catch up with both of you.
Yeah, thank you
everyone.
again to our speakers. Thank you, Chelsea, for moderating, and thank you, Ha and Ram, for sharing all of your amazing progress and your insight into this process. And like Chelsea mentioned, we'll send out a recording in the slide deck. And with that, we'll go ahead and conclude our webinar. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.